amidst the celebratory clinking of glasses and the rich scent of barbecue smoke curling across the backyard, a hush fell over the assembled dozens. My mother Eldrin, her face aglow with an almost beatific pride, raised her glass of white wine. Her gaze, warm and tender, settled upon my younger sister Lyra. "This," she announced, her voice ringing clear, "is the daughter who has always loved her family." Then, her eyes flickered to me, not with anger, nor bitterness, but a dismissive, almost polite indifference. A faint, fleeting smile touched her lips as she added, "And that one? She's never done a thing to help." A silence, thick and suffocating, descended upon the gathering. No nervous laughter, no murmurs of disagreement, just the chilling sound of ice against glass and the ragged gulp I forced down, battling the tremor in my hands. Welcome to the crucible of kin, where family secrets are not just hidden, but forged in fire and left to burn to cinders. The people you believe are yours are often the first to strike the match. If one day you discovered your own blood had quietly erased you from their narrative, after all the years you sacrificed, carried, and endured, what would be your response? Would you swallow the insult, preserving a hollow peace? Or would you rise, walk away, and never look back? My name is Alara Vance. I live in a quiet 2-bedroom apartment, a sanctuary just large enough for the morning whisper of the coffee machine, private enough that no one sees the silent burdens I shoulder or the invisible support I extend. My work as an auditor for a financial firm may not be glamorous, but it provides enough to live, to save, and to sustain a family I haven't truly lived with for over a decade. For 9 years, I had quietly borne the weight of their world. The mortgage on my parents' aging home, the relentless utility bills, the medical costs when Father Theron slipped, even Lyra's whimsical tuition for artisanal candle-making after her fleeting yoga certification phase. No one ever asked for the aid, yet no one ever refused it. They simply received. And I, for reasons now lost to a deeper understanding, continued to send the money, a silent river of sustenance. Lyra, 4 years my junior, possessed a delicate beauty, wavy blonde hair, a voice like spun cream. People described her as having healing energy. She drifted through life, dabbling in yoga, acting, then returning to Mother Eldrin and Father Theron's home to open a candle shop in their garage. Her days were filled with affirmations, handmade frames, and an unwavering belief that love alone could conquer all. I harbored no hatred for Lyra, yet I once believed we were all contributing, each doing our part. It turns out, some roles are simply easier to adore than others. And some people, like me, are remembered not for their unwavering contributions, but for their perceived absence, their missing space in a curated photo collage. The Lakeside Haven Lodge, nestled amidst sun-drenched pines in Utah, held a history of distant cousin weddings and strained, pretend-we-like-each-other reunions. This year it was chosen again. Nearly 50 souls gathered, a flock of migratory kin, some having driven 10 hours from distant states, bringing dogs, tents, and even portable fans. The adults prepared food, the children chased soda cans, country music blared from a speaker, and long tables, draped in red and white checkered cloths, sagged under the weight of indifferent potato salad. I arrived a mere 15 minutes late, not due to traffic or forgetfulness. I had lingered in my car, staring at the crudely painted wooden sign that declared, "Welcome, Vance Clan." My name, a generic, invisible etching, seemed to mock me. Perhaps this year will be different, I'd thought, a fleeting, desperate hope. Perhaps this time, I'll be greeted as a true member, not merely the walking wallet. I carried an envelope. Inside, a gift card for Le Jardin, an exquisite French restaurant in downtown. The kind of place Mother Eldrin and Father Theron always mused about visiting someday, yet never booked, citing expense or Lyra's schedule. I had secured the reservation 3 weeks prior, requesting a window table overlooking a grape arbor, even arranging for a small vase of lavender. The gift was not ostentatious, but I dare to hope, just this once, it might evoke a genuine smile. Across the lawn, Lyra shimmered in a white dress, her blonde hair flowing, a vision of conscious living, radiating smiles to all. She held a gift, wrapped in shimmering gold tissue and a satin ribbon. I thought little of it. Lyra always had a gift, always knew how to make a grand entrance, how to laugh at the perfect volume, how to embrace, just long enough to assure everyone that all would be well. I slipped my envelope quietly beneath Mother Eldrin and Father Theron's dinner plate. No fanfare, no announcement, just as I had managed every other contribution for nearly a decade. Dinner arrived. Southern-style barbecue, grilled corn, baked beans, and the same bland sweetbread. The air filled with laughter, the clinking of glasses, and the slurred tales of half-drunk uncles. A fragile belief began to form. Perhaps, this time, it would indeed be fine. Then Lyra rose. Someone handed her a microphone. Who, or why, I never knew, but the way she clasped it, as if her hand had been anticipating this very moment, spoke volumes. She smiled gently. I wasn't planning to say anything, but I have a small gift for our parents. Her voice, soft and poised, the kind found in motivational videos, filled the space. She unwrapped the paper, revealing a photo collage, carefully chosen images, a birthday on the beach, Christmas in the living room, a candid shot from the balcony at home. Mother Eldrin, Father Theron, and Lyra, all smiling, arms intertwined. I was in none of them. Not in the center, not at the edge, not even cropped out. Simply not there. Mother Eldrin took the frame, cradling it like a sacred artifact. She stared at it for a long moment, then stood, raising her glass to chest level. Her voice, clear and brimming with emotion, declared, "This is the daughter who's always loved her family." Applause erupted, scattered exclamations of awe. I sat frozen, my hands clenching into fists in my lap. Then, Mother Eldrin turned to me. Not loudly, not angrily, but with a chilling, almost serene calm. "And that one? She's never done a thing to help." I recall nothing said after that. A dropped fork, a throat cleared. But no one spoke up. No one sought clarification. No eyes registered confusion. Just me, sitting there, feeling a profound coldness in the midst of a July evening. I rose. No dramatic table slam, no hurled wine glass, no grand farewell. I simply stood, the way one departs a dinner party to which they were never truly invited. My chair scraped softly as I pushed it back. A few heads turned, a fleeting glance. But no one halted me. No one called out. No eyes widened with concern or regret. It was as if they had all been waiting for this moment. The moment I would quietly disappear, allowing them to return to the easier version of the evening, the one where my existence was never acknowledged. I walked past rows of folding tables, past trays of cooling food, past the laughter of relatives who wouldn't remember where I'd gone to elementary school, past my sister, head bowed in mock embarrassment, her hand still resting lightly on Mother Eldrin's shoulder, a silent stamp of affirmation. I didn't look at them, not out of anger, but from a deeper knowing. If I turned, I would see my own face reflected in their eyes as something utterly unnecessary. And I was too weary to maintain the pretense of belonging. My car was a shadowed silhouette near the edge of the woods. I slid into the driver's seat, but the engine remained silent. My hands rested on the wheel, my gaze fixed on the distant yellow string lights, twinkling like tiny, mocking stars in a picture I was never meant to be part of. I sat there for 5 minutes, then 10. No tears came, no calls were made. Just a profound stillness, as if I were teaching my body a new truth. From this moment on, we are not going back. The drive back to my Denver sanctuary was soundless. No radio, no podcasts, no music. Only the hum of the engine filled the void. And in that silence, the numbers began to unfurl in my memory, an endless, damning balance sheet. $980 per month for the mortgage, from Father Theron's job loss in 2014 until his part-time library position. $120 every time Lyra needed a quick loan for her candle-making tuition or Etsy supplies. $3,000 for Mother Eldrin's outpatient surgery, uncovered because she forgot to renew insurance. $160 per month for the gas card under my name, fueling 3 tanks a week. Some months, the car insurance, the storm-damaged roof repair. Once, Lyra's tearful call about unpaid tuition. Money wired in under 10 minutes. When I tallied it all, the grand gestures and the countless small, untracked interventions, the total surpassed $148,000. All of it silent, all of it invisible. Not a single official thank you. Not one card, Not once did anyone whisper, "You kept this entire family from crumbling." Back in my apartment, I didn't switch on the lights. Shoes off, I walked straight to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and stood for a long time, my hand pressed against the cool granite counter, as if bracing against the floor giving way. I felt no rage, no sharp sting, no shame, no disappointment, only an absolute doneness, as if a plug had been yanked, and every emotion, every current, had ceased. I opened my laptop, not to write but to sever. One by one, I logged into my bank accounts. The automatic transfer for Mother Eldrin and Father Theron's mortgage stopped. The secondary credit card Mother Eldrin used for her year-end getaways canceled. The utility account under my name, quietly paid for 8 years because they forgot, again, shut down. Access to the shared account Lyra used for Amazon sprees revoked. The gas card cut. The password to the email holding all my financial logins, the one Mother Eldrin had borrowed and never returned, changed. Everything. Clean, final. No hesitation, no announcements. Not out of spite, not to inflict suffering. I did it because I understood, with crystalline clarity, that if I could be erased from their story so effortlessly, there was no longer a reason to fund a role that had ceased to exist. Why keep the machine running when I had been removed from the list of acknowledged contributors? I had never craved praise, never sought glory. I simply longed for recognition that I was there, that I existed, that if anyone had truly kept that roof from caving in, the least they could do was not declare I had never done anything. That night, I took a longer shower than usual. Not from exhaustion, but because for the first time, I felt no compulsion to check my phone for frantic texts asking if the money had gone through. I climbed into bed, setting my alarm 2 hours later than normal. And I slept. No tossing, no dreams, no waking in the dead of night with that creeping anxiety of a forgotten payment. I slept like someone who, for the first time in 9 years, was simply a person, not a human ATM with feelings. And the strangest thing was, I felt no guilt. I stood in the kitchen when the doorbell chimed. Not urgent, not frantic, but one long, firm chime, as if the person outside knew exactly what they were waiting for. I didn't rush. I remained still, glass of water in hand, watching through the small curtained window by the microwave. The day was pale and overcast, but the silhouettes on the porch were stark. Mother Eldrin, slender, wrapped in her beige cardigan, the one she wore when she wished to appear fragile, deserving of forgiveness. Her hair loose, her cream flats worn at the heel. Father Theron stood slightly behind her, hands in pockets, shoulders slumped. Looking at them from inside my home, I felt no anger, only distance. As if the two people who had given birth to me, who had called me daughter for over 30 years, now stood outside, seeking permission to enter a stranger's house. I went to the door. I didn't chain the lock, didn't switch on the porch light. We simply stood there, me, within the threshold, them, in the muted sunlight. "Can we talk for a moment?" Mother Eldrin began, her voice softer than I remembered. No smile, no attempt at levity, a flicker of worry in her eyes, as if unsure whether I would shut the door. "I just want to clear up a misunderstanding." I leaned gently against the doorframe, arms crossed, my gaze unwavering. "We can talk right here." I didn't invite them in, not to shame them, but because I could not let them invade the one space that had become my refuge from demands, midnight calls, emails titled urgent, can't wait until tomorrow. This was the space I had built for myself. They had forfeited their claim to it the night Mother Eldrin raised her glass, pointed at Lyra, and erased me with a single sentence. Mother Eldrin glanced around, hesitantly. That tentative posture, I'd seen it countless times, whenever she wished to apologize without admitting fault. She took a quiet breath. "About what happened at the reunion. I didn't mean to say it that way. It's just, everyone was watching. Lyra had just given us the photo. I got emotional, and..." Her voice trailed off. "I just misspoke. I didn't smile, didn't scoff, didn't frown. I merely nodded, like someone reviewing a financial report with missing columns. Misspoke," I repeated, in front of dozens of people. Father Theron spoke for the first time. "We didn't think you would react like this." I met his gaze. So, silence would have been fine then, as long as I kept paying. As long as the bills were covered, the loans approved, then it didn't matter if I was erased from the family photo. No one answered. I straightened, pulling my phone from my pocket, opening the Notes app. The one where I had meticulously typed every expense, large and small, at 2 a.m. the night I returned from the reunion. I didn't show them the screen. I simply read aloud, $18,340 for the mortgage, $21,600 for utilities, $11,100 for medical bills, tests, medications, including 2 hospital stays for Father Theron's hypertension, $5,700 for Lyra's candle-making classes, meditation workshops, then a small business course, $3,900 for car maintenance, gas cards, insurance, and over $20,000 in miscellaneous things I no longer remember. Total, $148,330. In 9 years, I finished, leaving nothing out, letting no emotion interfere. Mother Eldrin looked at the ground. Father Theron glanced at me, then away. They remembered. Not every transaction, perhaps, but the countless times they had asked, "Can you help with this?" And I had never once refused. "And after all that," I continued, "you stood up, raised your glass, and declared I'd never helped. In front of the entire family. And no one objected. No one looked surprised. No one even turned to look at me. Which means, to them, it made perfect sense. I didn't need them to explain. I didn't need to hear, 'We were caught up in the moment,' or 'Lyra's going through a hard time.' They had chosen to erase me, easily, with a single sentence, without a thought for how it would unravel 10 years of quiet sacrifice. No one was required to understand me. But they were given a choice, and they chose to stand with the applause behind the photo frame. Finally, I spoke. Not angry, not loud, but with chilling clarity. If what I've done isn't enough to be considered part of this family, then from now on, I won't continue paying to keep that role alive. This isn't punishment. It's just clarity. I closed the door slowly, not with force, but with an echoing finality. Outside, the sun was still shining. But inside me, finally, it had started to go cold again. I was wiping down the kitchen counter when the doorbell chimed again. Not a long, insistent ring, but 2 short, firm ding-dongs, like a reminder, as if the person outside was certain of their right to be here. I dried my hands with a towel and didn't rush. The small side window offered a view of the front steps. Lyra, tote bag slung over one shoulder, wearing slip-on sandals, hair in a loose bun, a wrinkled t-shirt. Her face was tense, but not collapsing. Still Lyra, the kind of person who could spin a breakdown into a healing experience. I opened the door, but didn't invite her in. She walked in anyway, as if returning to a space that had always been hers. But this was no longer her home. Not the bedroom where she used to borrow my lipstick without asking. Not the kitchen where I used to make her tea when anxiety overwhelmed her. This was my space, paid for with my salary, my overtime, my exhaustion. And now I stood in its center, not yielding, not stepping aside. "Do you even know what you're doing?" she demanded, no preamble. Her voice was louder than usual, but not sharp, like someone abruptly ejected from a train they believed they held a lifetime ticket for. "You're not answering texts. You're not picking up the phone. Mother Eldrin and Father Theron called me 14 times this morning. They think something happened to you. They thought you were just mad. But then the payments didn't come in. The accounts got locked. The cards were declined. They're panicking." I stood still, listening. No reaction. I was too accustomed to this rhythm. Someone arriving, chaos in hand, wondering why I hadn't already fixed it. "I had to work an extra shift yesterday," she accused, as if the need for her to earn money was a betrayal. "You know, they've depended on you for years, and now you just cut it all off. What even is this?" I sat down, arms crossed. "Because they chose it." Lyra's brow furrowed, confused, or perhaps simply unwilling to comprehend. "Chose what?" "Chose you," I said slowly, right in front of dozens of people. Mother Eldrin raised her glass, looked at you like you were a prize, and turned to me and said I'd never helped. No one said a word. No one objected. "You didn't either." She shook her head. I was surprised. I didn't think Mother Eldrin would say that. But you didn't correct her," I cut in. "You smiled. You bowed your head, all shy. You took the praise like it belonged to you. You let me sit there like a stranger in my own family. And then you watched me walk away and never once asked why. The air between us thickened, heavy. Lyra averted her face slightly. I couldn't discern if it was shame or if she was preparing her next offense. It's not black and white, she said, quieter now. You know how Mother Eldrin is. She doesn't think things through. She just gets caught up in the emotion. I nodded. And you get caught up in the performance. The role of the beloved daughter, the one in the photo frame, the one all the relatives nod about when they hear her name. I didn't ask for this, she whispered. But you didn't refuse it either, I replied. You let it happen. And when I disappeared, you didn't come looking. You only came back when something stopped working. When the system I'd kept running started glitching. When the walls cracked and you realized you didn't know how to patch them. She looked at me then, eyes beginning to well up. But I didn't soften. Not because I wanted to hurt her, but because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't the one biting my tongue to keep the peace. You're mad I left Mother Eldrin and Father Theron hanging, I said, my voice slow and steady. But really, I'm just acting like what they believe is true, that I never helped. So now they can learn to manage without the invisible hand. And you can finally do what you've always been praised for being so good at, loving them. Lyra didn't respond. A single tear traced a path down her cheek, but she didn't wipe it away. She simply stood there, as if finally realizing that some roles, once accepted, come with genuine responsibilities. A minute later, she turned, walked to the door. No slamming, no final word. She simply left, stepping into a world where, for the first time, she had to pay her own bills. I remained in the middle of the room. Not relieved, not victorious, but not regretful either. Just still. The kind of stillness that arrives when you cease being the scaffolding for a family. And you realize if you're no longer holding it all up, they'll either learn to stand or they'll fall. I anticipated quiet after that confrontation. I imagined they would retreat, figure things out, tuck their embarrassment into the stories they told neighbors, stories I was never a character in. But then, on a brisk morning, as I filed receipts, a notification popped up from the Vance Clan Forever social media group. My hand moved before my logic could stop it. Mother Eldrin had posted a clear, well-lit photo. Everyone was smiling, arrayed before the lakeside lodge, as if they had just concluded the perfect vacation. A neat row. Mother Eldrin, Father Theron, Lyra, a few aunts and uncles, a handful of cousins. And me. I wasn't there. Not a single gap where I could even be imagined. I wasn't in the picture, just as I hadn't been in the thank you speech that night. The caption, in Mother Eldrin's familiar tone, sentimental enough, sweet enough to warm anyone who didn't know better. Family is everything. Even when someone forgets that. I wasn't surprised. Yet a sting remained. Not pain, not betrayal, but a coldness, like a clean slice from sharp scissors through a quilt I had believed was still intact. Below the post, the relatives began to comment. An aunt wrote, "You're right. Family is where it begins and where it ends." A cousin I barely knew dropped a heart emoji. Another commented, "Every family has someone who drifts, but love will always wait for them to come back." I read every single comment, not seeking my name, but needing to confirm no one would speak the truth. And I was right. They chose the easier path. Pretend I never existed. I didn't comment. I didn't post a rebuttal. I didn't react with an angry emoji or write some vague status about being forgotten. Instead, I opened my laptop, not to argue, but to do what I had always done best. Reconcile, compile, list. I unearthed every email receipt from the past 9 years, digital bank statements, screenshots of wire transfers, thank you emails from doctors' offices, utility bills, electric, water, gas, texts from Lyra asking for help when her account dipped negative, tuition confirmations, last-minute flight bookings. Each tiny, scattered piece of evidence, when strung together, told a story they had never bothered to tell. I gathered them all into one single post. No caption, no call-out, no dramatics. Just images. Each image, a payment. Each payment, a part of my life that was never acknowledged. And finally, I added one single line. Total expenses over 9 years, $148,330. No expectations, no demands, no regrets. But also no more. I set the post to public. Didn't tag anyone. Didn't mention Mother Eldrin. Didn't refer to the reunion. Didn't explicitly state the caption was about me. Because they knew. They all knew. And I didn't need to underline the obvious. I posted it at 10:42 a.m. Closed my laptop at 10:45 a.m. No refreshing, no waiting. I made lunch, cleaned the bathroom, watered the plants, changed the sheets. Small, quiet things, the antithesis of what I had done for 9 years to keep a crumbling structure from collapsing. That afternoon, I checked my phone again. The post had been shared, not by me, but by the very people who had once sat quietly as Mother Eldrin erased me in public. Someone messaged, "I had no idea you did all that." A cousin wrote, "I'm sorry I didn't say anything that night." Someone sent a crying face emoji. Another sent a Bible verse about forgiveness. And Mother Eldrin? Not a word, not a response, not even a deleted post. Her still stood, as if I had vanished for no reason at all. Then came a message from Lyra. No punctuation, no emoji, just 3 cold, dry words. "We need to talk." I stared at that line on my screen for a long time, not because I intended to respond, but because I knew, for the first time in her life, Lyra wasn't reaching out because she wanted love. She was reaching out because she finally realized when the one holding the center falls, everything else begins to crumble. I had thought they wouldn't come back. After that post, after Lyra's message, after the heavy silence that descended between people who used to call each other family, I imagined the story would end there. No closure needed, no apologies, just each person quietly stepping back. But then they returned. No drama, no warning. No longer carrying the posture or pride of people who believed they were right. Just 3 figures standing on my porch on a gray afternoon, like survivors emerging from a winter without heat. I saw them through the kitchen window. Mother Eldrin stood in the middle, appearing smaller than I remembered. Her hair disheveled, her face etched with sleeplessness. She wore that same old cardigan, once her emotional armor, now wrinkled and shapeless. Father Theron stood a little behind, hands in his pockets, worn sneakers, shoulders hunched as if his old back pain had returned. Lyra stood to the side, her faded tote bag slung across her body, dark circles under her eyes, a face stripped of pretense. No light, no hope, no healing daughter energy. She looked like someone abruptly thrown into a harsh reality without time to prepare. I opened the door but did not step outside. I did not invite them in, did not offer a handshake, did not even smile politely. I simply stood there, one hand on the doorframe, keeping the line drawn, as if to remind them. This was where I had learned how to breathe again after I stopped being the emergency lung for the entire family. Mother Eldrin spoke first, as she always did when designated spokesperson for the household's emotions. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice almost devoid of tone. "We shouldn't have said those things. Shouldn't have stayed silent. Shouldn't have left you alone." Father Theron said nothing, merely gazed down at the tips of his shoes. Lyra didn't interrupt. She remained silent, too, but not defensively, not trying to explain, no longer wearing the expression of "I didn't know," or "I didn't mean to." For the first time, my sister stood before me without a costume. I didn't nod, didn't pretend to forgive, didn't hide in the kind of silence my family used to treat as resolution. I simply looked at them for a long time. Then I said, not loudly, not gently, just clearly, "I'm not the daughter who endures anymore. Not the one who keeps everything upright in silence. Not the name that only gets mentioned when a bill's due." Mother Eldrin hesitated. Perhaps she waited for me to soften. Perhaps she hoped I would offer her a way out. But I didn't. I wasn't here to lighten anyone's load anymore. Lyra lowered her head. Her hand tightened around the strap of her bag, as if steadying herself. "I moved out," she said after a long pause. "I got my own place. It's small, but I'm managing." I didn't ask, "Are you okay?" That question had once been my responsibility for a lifetime. Now, I returned it to the world. A month later, I heard Mother Eldrin and Father Theron had listed the house. Not because they told me, but because a relative sent me a photo of the for sale sign staked in their lawn. That house, the one I'd quietly paid the mortgage on for nearly a decade, the one I'd carried with overtime, skipped meals, broken sleep. They sold it below market price because they needed to move fast. They downsized to a rental in the outskirts, a rundown complex, thin walls, flickering hallway lights, like a scene from a low-budget film. I didn't visit, didn't look back. I only knew because that same cousin sent me another photo, Mother Eldrin watering a wilted plant in front of the new unit. Dry soil, water dripping in slow, reluctant drops. Lyra was still in her rented place, a small studio apartment, not even 500 square feet, in the southern part of the city. She worked at a cafe, occasionally posted stories about selling candles again, but no more healing hashtags or captions about gratitude. Short stories, fewer words, faded colors. I didn't unfollow her, but I didn't interact either. I just saw it and left it alone. And me, I kept living. No neat ending. No dramatic TV reunion. I simply lived, without having to explain myself, without needing to justify my absence. I didn't need to revisit the old house or ask myself if I'd gone too far. Because I knew the true price of long silence, that someone like me can be erased from a story, even after giving nearly a lifetime to it. I'm not angry at them anymore, but I'm not with them either. I don't tell the story for pity. I tell it so someone might hear their own voice in it. In the quiet suffering, in the role that never ends, in the silences we endure because we believe we are the understanding one. I stepped out, and this time I left nothing behind. I used to think I would keep all of this to myself. That silence was the least painful way to end a relationship that had already fractured long ago. But when you stay silent for too long, people forget that you have a voice, that you are also a daughter, a sister, a part of the family portrait they proudly hang up every Thanksgiving. I used to be in that picture, somewhere. But one day, I realized I had been erased, and no one even bothered to pick up the eraser. And you know what? The thing that hurt me most wasn't the sentence, "She's never done anything," uttered in front of dozens of people. It was the chilling fact that no one thought it was wrong. No one flinched. No one turned to me and said, "That's not true. She's always been there." They said nothing because, to them, my silence meant agreement. It meant invisibility. I used to carry it all, believing, if I don't help, then who will? I used to convince myself, this is just how families are. Some people sacrifice, and some people are loved. But eventually, I understood, if the only time you're allowed to stay in a family is when you're still paying, still carrying the load, still giving up space so someone else can shine, that's not love. That's exploitation. And there is no birth certificate sacred enough to transform exploitation into affection. Some people grow up believing that family is forever, that no matter how wrong you are, how tired you get, someone will always open the door for you to come home. But others, like me, learn through the nights when no one checks in, through the bills we print and pay in silence, through the photo sessions we pay for but never appear in, that family is not always a place you come home to. Sometimes it's the place you have to leave to save yourself. Real love doesn't come with conditions. It's not a paycheck. It's not monthly wire transfers. It's not being the understanding one or the reliable one. Real love is being allowed to exist without having to prove your worth. It's being acknowledged without having to hold the roof up alone. And if a bond only exists when you pay to keep your place in it, then maybe it never really existed at all. I don't need them to apologize anymore. I don't need them to take the post down, rewrite the speech, or reframe the past. I don't need anything from them because for the first time in my life, I have something I used to think was a luxury, the quiet that comes from no longer owing anyone anything in the family I once tried so hard to hold together. I don't tell the story to be pitied. I tell it so that if you, somewhere, are stuck playing a role you never chose, living like a shadow beneath someone else's spotlight, giving parts of yourself away every month, to keep a family from collapsing while no one even knows your name, you'll know that you're not crazy. You're not overly sensitive. You're not ungrateful. You're just someone who has endured enough. Share the story if you've ever been the one carrying the whole family in silence. You don't need to explain. Just tell it so someone else might see themselves in it. And if you never have, pause for a moment and ask yourself, is there someone in your life who might be doing that for you right now? Not complaining, not demanding, not drawing attention, just quietly keeping everything from falling apart.